our schools and our children. Wanting better outcomes, transparency, and accountability is completely valid. I do my best to stay off of social media and not go down the rabbit hole on Facebook. This current weekend, I let my guard down in case any of you are interested in running for school board, which I might add is a huge time commitment. Terms that end in 27 is me in the North area, Mr. Hamburger in the borough, Ms. Strite in the North area, Ms. Zimmerman in the township, and Mr. Pence in the township. Terms that end in 2029 is Ms. Miles in the North area, Mr. Kirikoff in the borough, Mr. Harkins in the borough, and Ms. Weaver in the township. I did a little research also because we have been told about a petition that was circulated of no confidence. 1,164 people have signed the petition. At least that was the last that I had seen. A few of us were also told at a meeting how many people voted for each of us. As a taxpayer myself and a voter in the North area, there are 4,095 eligible voters. In the borough, there are 6,106 eligible voters. And in the township, there are 9,386 eligible voters. I just wanted to be able to compare the numbers and wanted transparency for all of us. It's been brought up that we can be personally sued, and one email even stated that her family has lost all faith in the current school board. I would hope that neither of these are the case, and I really do feel sorry for making you feel that way. That has never been the intention of the school board, and we're following the processes that is before us. Multiple statements have been made stating that we are dragging this process out as a school board. Please let me explain it again. August 25, the process began. September 25, the board voted to hire the Levin Group to lead the investigation. October 25, a Loudermill hearing was conducted. November 25, a resolution for demotion was placed on the agenda. The demotion was challenged and a hearing date was set. Hearings were January 19th, 20th, 30th, and February 11th. After the conclusion of the meetings, the board was told that we would receive all transcripts from the hearings. We were given evidence binders at the hearing, and closing arguments would be given to us as a board by the end of day on March 23rd. We received all 195 pages of transcripts on March 3rd. Last evening, we were informed that the closing arguments were available to us. We have all now received them, except for Linda, who's like somewhere in Timbuktu. I don't know. We also in the Tetons. We as a board are committed to making the best decision based on all evidence before us that was given in the hearings only. No outside matters or evidence will influence our decision. It is solely what was given at the hearings, in our evidence binders, and the closing arguments. We welcome your comments and we are grateful for the time that you have all spent as a community with us hearing this evidence. If we're going to make progress, we need to keep this conversation respectful and focused on solutions. At the end of the day, we want the same thing: safe schools, strong education, and the best future for our students. I know that I said this last time, but I'll say it again. As a 2002 graduate of Waynesboro, children in the middle school, multiple nephews in the elementary school and the high school, and a little who would probably rather be in school than with me and grandma during the day. Here I am, and here we all are sitting as a team of 9, listening, hearing you, and believing in our school and our community. I love this school, and I'm hopeful for our future. Please allow us the time that we need to thoroughly review the testimony, the evidence, and now the closing arguments to reach a legally sound decision. I'm confident that the board will have our decision by April 28th board meeting. And we have decided that the April 14th meeting, we would focus on the students and the programs that we have that day. So we will, again, thank you for your continued support and for showing up for this board and this community. We will now move on to public comment.
I'm here just to let you know what I think about everything that has been going on. First to the board, I don't know many of you, some of you I know by face. I sometimes wonder why people would pay money to run a campaign, to sit on a board that you don't get paid for. There's something wrong with you people, but I thank you for it. You have put a lot of time in, not just with this mess, for lack of a better term, but for a lot of things. I have lived in Waynesboro for over 50 years. I have had kids go through the district. My grandson is a student now. I volunteered at Fairview for many years while my kids were there and not there. I worked for the district. There's a lot of good in this district. There really is. But just this whole thing with Mr. Pappas, and maybe it was just how it was done. Everybody else that speaks has things written out, and I can't do that because I just could not sit and function and try to make anything make any sense. So, I just want to say that I have sat through the meetings, I have watched online, I have researched some things myself, things that led up to this. Would I have voted for them? Probably not, but I didn't choose to be in your position. The few things about this hearing, if that's what we want to call it, to me, it has just looked like a ninth grade civics mock trial gone awry. The two things that stuck out to me most at the last meeting at Hooverville, thank you, were the issue with the mandated reporting and how the attorney from Levine Group hammered and hammered and hammered at Mr. Pappas about, well, did you get the answers you wanted? Did you get information from the reports? And I talked to people that worked in different school districts, and they say that mandated reporters don't always receive information on the reports they turn in. And I think as I sat there, I heard Mr. Pappas say over and over and over that he did not have that information. He did not have that information. And then it went on to the incident at Fairview where or at Summit View, I'm sorry, that Mr. Pappas was on the phone with the grandmother of a child that was in some kind of a crisis. And they had the incident with the van, and Mrs. Kovacs, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, went out and checked on it. And at some point, again, the attorney from the Levine Group hammered and hammered and hammered to the point that, well, you know, Mr. Pappas, is Mrs. Kovacs dedicated to you? Is she a good secretary? Is she dedicated to you? How deep does her dedication go? And again, Mr. Pappas said, you know, I don't like this line of questioning, you know, rephrase the question, whatever. And he just kept it up. And I didn't know if I was watching, you know, Tom Cruise trying to beat Jack Nicholson down, or if I was watching a bad Law and Order. But I wanted to jump up and say, you know, ask and answered, you're badgering the witness. Stuff that was allowed to go on put everything in a bad light for the board, for the attorneys. It was not good for the public to see that. As far as the staff members that spoke in favor of Mr. Pappas when they were questioned, were they subpoenaed? I don't know what it was. To me, they showed integrity. They showed professionalism. They answered concisely. They answered clearly. Did the witnesses for the prosecution impress me as well? No, they hummed around answers. They hemmed and hawed. And at the end, you know, we want what's best for the school district. We want not to carry this to the end. And I don't think that whether Mr. Pappas is left go, which I think would be a huge mistake, huge, or if you put him back in, I think that this has changed this district. Younger people have run for the board. They're sitting there. They have new ideas. The people that have stepped up to support Mr. Pappas to get the grassroots going, they are going to change how the things are done in this district. And I hope it's done for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fortney, I appreciate your laying out the timeline for us, and I appreciate your hard work and dedication. One thing missing from the timeline was that the previous board voted November 25th to demote Mr. Pappas. 8 out of the 9 and 1 abstained. So I'd add that to the timeline. During board comments on October 28th, 2025, Mr. Pence read the definitions of a psychologically secure workplace and workplace retaliation. A psychologically secure workplace promotes creativity, enthusiasm, and collaboration. It nourishes growth and learning. A psychologically insecure workplace leaves employees hamstrung, exhausted, fearful of harassment and retaliation, and unable to do their best work, usually at the result of poor leadership. Waynesboro Area School District is a psychologically unsafe workplace. Ms. Miles, during board member comments at the last meeting, said, quote, "Public comment castigated someone tonight, and Dade, I'm glad you're here because somebody shared this with me. You actually got a thank you from Sierra." Who was castigated? And was it your responsibility to defend them? That comment was referencing the mayor having read in Ms. Garofalo's classroom for Read Across America Day. Ms. Garofalo has shown great strength and an ability to remain polite despite adverse circumstances. Does a thank you note to Mr. Royer mean that she was comfortable with him being in her room? That his presence was welcome or appropriate? That it did not make her feel psychologically unsafe in her own classroom? Ms. Miles went on to say, quote, "So public perception is being misleading, in my opinion," end quote. The public perception is that Mr. Royer and Dr. McCallum's father, reading in the classrooms of two teachers who testified in favor of Mr. Pappas out of all the kindergarten and first grade classrooms in the entire district, cannot have been a coincidence. It looks like yet another instance of harassment and retaliation by this administration, and if civil proceedings follow this fiasco, a jury will see it that way too. Ms. Streit, during board member comments at the last meeting, said, quote, "I am getting very short-fused with how our school district and how our administration and how other people in this town are being degraded, and this wrong information has just got to stop. I will, for one, be very glad when this is over. Very disrespectful," end quote. What wrong information? These comments give the impression that you did not heed Mr. Pence's warning, that you haven't considered the evidence. This is not one minor issue that's ending with a vote. This is multiple major issues that need addressed. The skeletons are running out of the closet, and you are waving and smiling at them and apparently refusing to consider that you have been misled. You feel it's disrespectful of me and my peers 2 weeks ago to voice our outrage. Our outrage is in proportion to what we see happening. The administration's actions over several years has created this environment, an environment in which it will be impossible for the district to thrive and grow. Current personnel are walking on eggshells. A quick Google search will have potential personnel and parents running scared. Parents will choose private or homeschooling or at great expense to the district cyber charter school. Directors, consider financial, staffing, and enrollment future liabilities. It is not your duty to protect the superintendents. It is not your duty to protect former or current board members. And it is certainly not your duty to coddle the mayor with your board comments. Your duty is to the district, not to any one individual or group of individuals. The superintendents with the former board in place overestimated their power. But there is a new board now. I hope and believe the old guard is outnumbered. So directors, will you perpetuate a psychologically unsafe environment, continue to risk the future of the district, or will you put duty above ego and join us in our outrage? Use your lawful authority to take action.
Thank you.
I want to begin tonight by saying thank you to each one of you for your sacrifice and your time given to our community and our children. I recognize and acknowledge the time spent away from your family, and I want you to realize that it does not go unnoticed. My heart wants to hope that each of you has the best interest of our children at heart, but I need to be honest and say that recent events and information have greatly tipped my discernment meter to think that some moral compasses may need recalibrating. A very wise AP US history teacher in our district, Mr. Darwin Seiler, would start every year with a speech to his class about the value of integrity and the vital role that this character trait plays in our lives. I stand before you today to implore each and every one of you to be leaders of integrity and display the same values that our district works so hard to instill in its students. I do not condone the hate that has been spewed about members of our community. And if there has been misinformation spread as stated, I would ask that you would provide us with the substantiated evidence to dispute those claims. Honesty should be a non-negotiable. And labeling something as misinformation, if there is legitimate fact to back it, is clearly dishonest, disrespectful to those you represent, and honestly, a far cry from the integrity and discernment that we expect of our elected leaders. My faith reminds me that our amazing God has created each and every one of us to do a specific job. Each one is endowed with specific innate gifts, but we must choose to step into them and be good stewards of them. This district has some of the most incredibly gifted educators, and each one of them deserves the right to work in a position that allows them to thrive as the leaders that they were created to be. I can speak personally that the climate of a workplace can make or break a system, and a successful outcome evolves from a cyclical pattern. Educators who feel supported will do a great job in the classroom. Students who feel supported and well-loved will excel. Students excelling will reflect positively on both the district and its administration. And a strong district will then support a strong town. It is a simple leadership model, but all need to be devoted to it and adhere to it for it to be successful. Our incredible educators cannot pour from empty cups and deserve to work in a system where their cups are continually overflowing rather than being drained. I love Waynesboro and want to continue to support and build this community to be the town that we are proud to raise our children in. To ensure this happens, I am asking of you all the following actions. Strive to reestablish confidence in this district. Reinstate leaders who will stand and strive for excellence and will teach our children to do the same. Maintain and celebrate the leaders that you have, and that will allow them to continue to protect our kids' innocence and allow them to grow in a learning environment that is free from toxic behavior. Ask yourself, are you truly exemplifying the traits this district is holding our children to? Are you being leadership legends where you are showing you naturally step up and model responsibility, strong decision-making skills, and leadership qualities? I am calling each of you to a higher standard so that we can both attract and maintain talent that will set our district apart now and for years to come. To echo recent statements, your constituents can't wait for this to be over either. We see and we empathize with the added stress that all of you have right now, but for the interest of our children, their innocence, and for our town, sometimes doing hard things are necessary to ensure that truth can be uncovered and systemic integrity maintained. The comments made to dismiss and belittle the opinions and desires of your constituents as uneducated hearsay is disrespectful and honestly a huge disservice to the educated, hardworking men and women who placed you all in this position and make this incredible town the wonderful place it is to live. By definition, you all are the active representation responsible to make our voices heard. Let's work together to do better, do the right thing, rebuild, and reestablish that borough pride that we all hold so dear. Thank you.
It's been brought to my attention that I need to clarify a few things that I've spoken about. Yes, I am a supporter of Mr. Pappas. However, I come to the podium and speak as a supporter of our children. Regardless if you reinstate him or not, the community is awake, we're watching and listening and paying attention, and we are not going away. I'm not here to convince you to reinstate Mr. Pappas, as taxpayer dollars have paid into a hearing that has produced an enormous amount of evidence of misinformation, lack of investigation, gross misconduct, and illegal tampering of evaluations. I believe the hearing and evidence speaks for itself. Allison Kopko, she's the current principal at the high school. Dr. Kopko reached out to me after I spoke regarding the incorrect information given to my stepdaughter in class on a slideshow for next year's course selection. I want to say thank you to her for reaching out and listening to my concern and fixing the issue promptly. I'd like to clarify another comment I made at a previous board meeting. This was brought to my attention, so I want to make sure it's crystal clear. My comments about Diane Eberhardt referencing Jerry Sandusky. To be clear, I was not calling Diane Jerry Sandusky. What I was referencing was a recent meeting where Diane Eberhardt jokingly referred to herself as Jerry Sandusky. Again, I have the proof if needed. Kim Miles, you noted during the board comments that I chastised Aide Royer for reading in Sarah Garoppolo's classroom. As Rita admitted, a clipboard went around the Rotary Club. And Rita admitted she knew who was speaking in which classroom. So let's be clear who I'm really speaking about. Again, in my opinion, that was nothing short of bullying, and I stand by that comment. She did send a thank you, as a great professional teacher would do. Until you tell me that you personally spoke to her and asked her what her feelings were, you'll never convince me otherwise. Patty Strite, you stated you were getting short fused and wrong information was being reported in public comments and on social media, and it had to stop. Unfortunately, as you know, we can't police social media, but I would like you to specifically give us which wrong information the public has. We agree in your comment. We will be glad when it is all over. Finally, I'll end with this. TIMS, the Teacher Information Management System, from which the Department of Education has a public website that the school district, school board members, and taxpayers should be checking the backgrounds of educators in the Commonwealth. According to Rita, she's the custodian of records. When you visit the website, it states that Hooverville has been without a principal for 7 years. Diane Eberhardt became the principal of Hooverville in 2019. Again, about 7 years ago. Why aren't these records correct? Another thing I found on a website was the Waynesboro Area School District gave Rita a distinguished rating for the 24-25 school year. But the taxpayers do not know what the criteria to achieve this rating was. After the Pappas public hearings, we all know she is far from distinguished. Maybe one of the board members can go back in and change the rating to failing. Thank you for my time.
Let me start by saying to Rita first, I am sorry at the loss of your father-in-law. I played much tennis with Bill and with Derek back in the day at Memorial Park. And that's a big loss because we had a lot of good times then. So I extend my sympathies. That said, good evening. Tonight I decided to have a movie night. Have you ever seen the movie The Help? It is a movie about Mississippi in the South in the 1960s. And it talks about a girl named Skeeter who wants to be a writer, and she chooses to write about Black help in the South. That was a taboo subject back in that era. There's one particular famous line in the movie that stood out to me. It was the line from Black maid Abilene Clark to white Hilly Holbrook, who was picking on her. "Ain't you tired, Miss Hilly? Ain't you tired?" It represented a defiant, powerful statement against the cruelty, racism, and exhausting nature of maintaining hate. Are we not maintaining hate here for a principal who did his job? And so I ask you this question tonight as we stand here defending Mr. Pappas and asking you to reinstate him. Ain't you tired, folks? Ain't you tired of doing this to a man, his family, and his community? And you have no idea how hard it's for me to say, ain't you tired, because I came from a family of 3 teachers. You see, I understand to a degree what he is going through because I went through this in a workplace, not once, but twice. I had a coworker accuse me of something I did not do to gain money, and it was my word against hers. That went to court, and I spent more than a few months defending myself because it was my word against hers, and there were no witnesses. That judgment went to stet docet, which in Latin means no judgment. That stayed on my record for 3 years, and I couldn't get it expunged. Is this going to happen to Mr. Pappas too? I also had a female manager fire me from a job because I refused to sign off on glasses that were not being done correctly within the lab. I used to be an optician. I know all the optical standards in my head, and I knew they were not correct, and I refused to sign my name to them because I was not going to put my name to something that was not right. I took that to the labor board, and I won 4 months of back pay. Let me tell you something I know. There is nothing worse than not knowing where your future is going, but yet standing up for what is right. The decision you make today will affect not only this man's life, but the future of our community in the months and years to come. There are 3 facts that we cannot deny. Number 1, the fact that Mr. Pappas was thwarted from doing his job as a mandated reporter, not once, but twice. The fact that Mrs. Garafello was called in supposedly to be questioned and, quite frankly, intimidated, and then told she was not allowed to keep her representative of choice in the room. That is a violation of due process and contract to the teacher. And last but not least, Mrs. Diane McCallum's deliberate changing of Mr. Pappas's evaluation scores on an evaluation she did not perform. Why was that done? Why are you still sitting there looking at me?
That's really not appropriate.
I'm sorry. To Rita and Diane and members of the board, ain't you tired? Ain't you tired of creating chaos everywhere? We had students tonight speak on mental health, bullying, and kindness to others. What are we teaching them with what is currently going on here? There is another line in Titanic where the people that were saved on the boats looked back as the ships were sinking and realized that they did not fill the boats full enough. There's a famous line with that. They waited for an absolution that would never come. It symbolized the guilt, the lack of closure, and the lack of peace that they lived with while others died because of the decisions they made. And so tonight, if you do not decide to reinstate Mr. Pappas and continue to demote him, this will not only affect him, but the community at large. Our trust will be broken in the system. Your teachers' trust in you will be broken, and the community will be affected in domino ways that you cannot imagine. Ain't you tired, folks? Ain't you tired? And are you willing to wait for an absolution that will never come? Since Ms. Fortney asked for solutions tonight, I'm here to provide one. You've left us no choice. I'm asking for the resignation of Assistant Superintendent Diane McCallum and Superintendent Rita Sterner-Hein, as hard as that is for me to do. And the reinstatement of Mr. Stephen Pappas as principal of Summit View Elementary School for the sake of our community. I thank you for your time.
I come to you speaking not just as a parent and taxpayer, but I come as a spokesperson representing several thousand of our community who feel likewise. I do want to acknowledge, I think that is a very substantial number when we talk about the whole of our community, all of which are not aware of this case. I think the number of people who have shown up in support is pretty remarkable considering how contained this should have been to an elementary school. The public, well, forgive me because I don't have my reading glasses. The public requests explanation for the need to have Solicitor Beard present at board meetings. In particular, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, it's got so much better. Thank you. In particular, physically present, necessitating payment for his travel time, as opposed to perhaps joining online, either of which seem costly and unwarranted and not in keeping with prior protocol prior to the Pappas ordeal. Mr. Beard told us this evening that demand for observance and accountability of law and protocol is, quote, really not appropriate. The public continues to request transparency of action or explanation of the dereliction of duties of Solicitor Beard, Superintendent Sterner-Hein, Assistant Superintendent McCollum, and the board. It is really hard for me to say that because I do so appreciate the job that all of you mentioned do. In the appropriate PDE and district reporting and investigation for record tampering, launching allegations and demotion proceedings without appropriate investigation, and failure to follow mandated reporter protocols. As you have now been served the closing statements of the Pappas hearings, we seek to ensure the board's understanding of appropriate participation of Solicitor Beard in deliberation. Separation of functions. If the solicitor acted as the hearing officer, and he did, he should generally not be involved in the final deliberations or vote, as this presents an appearance of impartiality issues. The board should make its own decision based on the evidence presented. Board decision, not solicitors. A legal vote requires a majority of a quorum of the school board members. The solicitor's presence is not required for the vote to be valid, as he is not a voting member. No vote in executive session. The board may not vote to demote an employee during a private executive session. The final vote must occur in a public meeting. Please note for the board and public that today marks a half a year of Pappas removed from the workplace with his career and family wellness held in limbo. The independent cost of Pappas's legal defense is $39,340.72 prior to the very significant billing for closing remarks. Every penny of this was avoidable and an inexcusable act on the part of our district. And we now face the extenuating cost and liability, which mounted with every day of inaction. Please note the public attempt to protect and respect our board members. Please also reasonably respect that dereliction of duties leaves us with no choice but to advance the need to hold you accountable with investigative and legal action, for which you have now opened yourselves up to your independent. You've lost your liability protection by not following the PDE protocols. I have requested a meeting with the Budget Committee to address viable strategies to reduce district expense and liability in 3 areas, with one of these points, including the Pappas events. Please note that no concern or criticism has been posed without offering viable solutions. Imperative information and invitation for both board and individuals to share their positions has been consistent. But unfortunately, it has not been respected. This evening, President Fortney gave the first response. Unfortunately, she has not responded to the pertinent issues in that response. What she did effectively do is continue to demean and diminish the public voice. With regard to what she did address, the voter to votes received per board member, which President Fortney challenged, was based on the total number of voters in that election, not the sum total of residents, which does roughly correlate to the total votes received by each board member, as well as the total number of petitioners who signed the petition, just to offer clarity, illustrating the residents invested in civic responsibility. There was a suggestion of following the need to follow legal protocol. The board was legally sound to reinstate Pappas at any point, including during this meeting. Due process has not been followed. There remains no evident grounds to demote Pappas. With respect to the Pappas supporters of borough integrity, we have walked this ruling path with you. You have not been alone. So while I do sympathize with the exhaustion, I also empathize. I've also spent many hours, well in excess of 40 now, away from my family and children to champion the integrity of our borough and of each of you. And I hope you hear that there is not a single personal attack in anything that I think these people have said. Please take heed of our student presentation this evening that spoke against bullying and encouraged resolution that is, quote, respectful and responsible. Well, I think I already said it, but I'm going to conclude with it again. I speak not as a single person, but as a spokesperson for a much larger portion of our community, seeking to protect our financial interests and the protective protocols for our educators, and to heal the integrity necessary to build a better borough. Thank you.
I also want to say thank you that I can't believe that you're here. I mean, we were here watching it all happen, but you were here having to really listen and focus. So thank you for that time. When I found out you are volunteers, I was like, wow. Anyway, so I am a bit confused about some things that are a little bit unclear to me, but I come not as these beautiful, eloquent speakers, but I am a teacher, and I believe that some of the things that I heard were confusing, that they were bad. So I'm going to start with saying that I've worked in Frederick County, New York City, San Francisco, New Hampshire, Thailand, all since the 80s. I've been a teacher, the late 80s. And I'm currently a teacher in, I did sub in the Franklin County area too, after coming back from Thailand. But I currently teach in Washington County. And I'm going to say that in all of those situations, whether it was a man or a woman, there was something that was common in all of them. And it was the principal was respected. The principal was the person you went to. Whether it was male or female, like I said, that was the person in charge of the school. And even the assistant principals in some of the schools that had them deferred to what the principal's final decision was. So when I heard that there was a new teacher, the librarian, that made any decision, nonetheless this huge one that she didn't even know about, without consulting the one in charge of the school, seemed so disrespectful. And the fact that he didn't come in and say, yo, this is disrespectful, but instead was like, wait a second, like he showed integrity. He had the right to put his foot down and say no. A principal does have a right to say that. But instead, he tried to figure out what was going on and was respectful when he was treated disrespectfully, showing his integrity, showing that he really does deserve to be a leader. So those who were involved in that, who were helping her, that is really sad, because as a new teacher in that county, I have a mentor. I could never imagine my mentors telling me to go against my principal. That's just weird. So the fact that he's in trouble and she's not, that's confusing to me. So anyway, and I think it's a shame that that's the lesson that's being taught. When you do something right with your job, you're in trouble. But when you do something wrong, you can spend a lot of money fighting the person who did something right. It's just weird. Doesn't make sense. And I'm just a simple person. I'm not one of these very educated people that can talk like that, but this is just me. Okay, then as a mandated reporter, I was listening to that, crying because I thought, wow, why would someone ask someone to relive the death of her husband and all that pain she went through and like draw us in for then to her to actually talk about how amazing Mr. Pappas was for following the mandated reporter laws. I'm like, wait, did you just say that he didn't tell you? When I've had to be a mandated reporter, I didn't call the person and say, hey, I'm calling on you. That's illegal. And then to ask the person who told you that someone called, you just put that guy under the bus, if it was a guy or a woman, for doing the wrong thing on their job. So here, someone who was trying to go against Mr. Pappas actually was asking him to break the law and wondering why through her tears he didn't. Why didn't you break the law is what she really said, if you know what the law is, and I don't know if you do. But the law is you don't call the people, and it is anonymous. So, I mean, anyway, and he was being a principal that even though he knew from what she said, they knew each other. They're principals in the same district, in a small district, that he was willing to put a child first, to put the law first, to do the right thing, despite what he knew probably could happen to him. And we got to all see why he might not trust people. I thought that was one of the most profound things too. He doesn't trust us. Well, now none of us do either, because we're seeing what's happening. And then one of them was asked, one of the witnesses was asked, do you trust him? And she couldn't lie. So she said no. So it's okay to not trust him, but he has to trust you. Again, very confusing to my simple mind. The cafeteria food, I don't know about you, I'm 60, but as far as I've known, there's been cafeteria jokes for my entire life. So the idea, that you can't joke with your staff members, or you just go up to them and you say, hey, this is what I teach my students. That really hurt my feelings. I didn't like when you said that about the food. I have to eat the food, or my child had to because we didn't have a lot of money. And I know you like to eat healthy, but can you please not say that? That's how I teach my kids to solve a problem. I don't know. Anyway, so basically it made me realize something. If you watch about the Japanese schools, they eat so healthy. They have no obesity there. They start in the schools, they cook with the kids, and they have to have very nutritious food. And I thought, wow, this is so weird. This just opened up a can of worms of, we could have been spending all this money on really healthy food. My sister worked in Maine. I only know one school in Yarmouth, Maine. They have gourmet food. The teachers are fighting in line to get the food because it's so amazing. They have Thai food. They have this, all gorgeous food, healthy, organic food. They spend their money on giving healthy food to their kids so they can work harder and be stronger. So this just opened up that. Why? I don't know who decides that in a county or a district or whatever, but wouldn't it be amazing if we gave them healthy food instead of canned or squeezed tube food? That I don't know really if anybody could actually say that it's healthy. Whether it's good or not, you might, some people like sugar, some people like different things. So I'm not going to say whether it's good or not, but whether is it good for you is what I'm concerned about. And he did say that he's really picky about eating healthy food. So that would just make sense to make that comment. Why you would lose your job for that, I don't know. Okay, now, new teacher. Oh, the new teacher meetings. I sat here and listened. I was like, wait, I was at new teacher meetings. And one thing that was really hard for me was because I had been out of the American classroom for a long time, public school. I didn't understand about the union. Back in the day in Thurmont, back almost 30 years ago, if you didn't join the union, the teachers were mad at you. I joined a Christian union back then that I was told about from some teachers, but all the other teachers that wanted me to be in that union said, you're still being taken care of. It was a very uncomfortable situation. So when I came back this many years later, in Washington County. I'm like, I wonder what the rule is. I'm really uncomfortable. All they're doing is pushing the union on you. And they don't even give you an option